Q Bert is a game that people know about, although in this day and age, it is perhaps due to the character's various movie and TV appearances rather than the games that the trunked walking sphere originated from. Given that the IP is owned by Sony Pictures Entertainment as opposed to Sony Interactive Entertainment, I suppose that makes sense. The early titles were arcade hits, although I went to an old school arcade and played a cabinet earlier this year before lockdown kicked off, and wasn't gripped. Anyway, due to the lack of grippedness, while I had put Bert onto one of my old Macs, I didn't bother playing it until last week, when I had a spare couple of minutes and fancied something quick. After a few attempts, I got good enough for it to be fun, so it's therefore the subject of interest today on YesterYear's Mac Games. Bert was developed by Ingemar Ragnemalm. A fairly prominent name within the realms of Macintosh Shareware, Ingemar created a handful of notable titles himself in his own engine, the Sprite Animation Toolkit, which was used extensively by other small Mac developers. As of the time of recording, there are 40 games listed on Macintosh Garden as running upon this, but it's one of the fields that isn't always filled in when someone uploads something, so the actual number of games using it could potentially be twice that. Bert itself seems to have first emerged around about 1994, and found itself around the world upon various magazine cover discs, as well as part of one of Ingemar's Shareware bundles. Come 2000, and he decided to release it as freeware, which was nice. Older and newer versions are available on the archive sites with a few visual differences, but the gameplay is the same. The role of Q Bert is given to a parody of Bert Karlsson, a Swedish businessman who, at the time of the original release, was a major figure in a new political party. Here he is. I guess the teeth on the sprite make more sense after looking him up. From what I've read, he was a lousy politician, with the party caving into itself when he fell out with the other founder. The game is isometric, and as a result, I had a hard time finding a set of controls that I liked, eventually setting on 2, 3, 0 and the decimal point. Pressing these buttons has Bert hop about, changing the boxes to the target colour, which is green. Bert loses lives by throwing himself off the side, which is easier to do than you might think, or through coming into contact with some of the nasties. Now, part of the charm of certain Shareware games is the sheer randomness which just isn't seen in modern indies, where everything tends to be themed. Bert is a fine example of an inexplicable selection of objects, although some do have more meaning than may be apparent. The bouncing ball was in the original Q Bert, and the CDs that act as escape routes are a reference to Bert's record business. You then have the two little horizontal fellas who set boxes on fire, a magnet that chases Bert around and drops him off the side, some sort of blue lump in a wig which reverts Bert's progress as it makes its way down the play area, and a tulip that grows into a turd, wearing glasses. After perusing the readme, I learnt that this is actually a slipper, which pounds Bert into the ground upon contact and loses the player a life. The game has 4 sets of stages, with 4 levels in each. The first set requires a single jump on each box to progress, the second set requires 2, and the third sees Bert undo already flipped boxes if he jumps onto it a second time. This was the end of the line for me. Plotting a route to all the boxes while being chased around by everything was tricky enough, and forward-thinking a way out of some of the corners without undoing too many boxes was beyond my capability. The CDs at this point become a lot more useful, as they provide a way back to the top without undoing blocks. I just wish they moved a bit quicker. Come on, I could have made a drink in this time. There's nothing particularly complex going on in the sound department, just a few noises, with Bert's cry as he tumbles into oblivion being the most notable. The only music in this game comes from a bit of piano tinkling provided by Krista Petterson, which plays upon collection of a green box. This is the game's only power-up, incapacitating hostiles and speeding Bert up significantly. How lovely. The only frustrating aspect of the game, which I think actually might have been fixed in a later version than I was playing, comes with losing a life and respawning onto the top block that was already occupied by a hostile, thus instantly losing a second. A bit of logic that held the respawn until it was clear, or a couple of seconds of invulnerability would have been nice. The blocks that nasties spawn onto is overall quite dangerous and is ideally only approached when everything that can show up is already on the play area, as there is no time to get out of there if something drops in. Aside from the complications surrounding that though, this is a fairly snazzy Q Bert clone that clocks in only a few hundred kilobytes. It's such a simple title, but still manages to be fun, challenging, and addictive. If you can get past the third level of the third set, then you'll probably have beaten my best score, which is 1181, but good luck beating Ingemar. That'll do then for this edition of YY's MG. For more content on vintage Mac Shareware, take a look over the rest of my channel. There's a fair amount now. I've been at it for a while. Otherwise, pop your memories, high scores, and general musings in the comments, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.